Alrighty, welcome everybody to the Detroit Lions team preview. If you don't know me by now, my name is David. I also go by Miller Football. And right now we are doing a series on this channel where I'm going team by team, talking about what they did during the offseason, how their season ended last year, and kind of predicting what their season is going to be like this coming season. And I'm bringing on a guest for every episode, trying my best to get a fan of each team for each episode. I'm completely falling over my words right now. But unfortunately for the Lions, I couldn't find one. Like, I tried my hardest. I made a TikTok about it. I tweeted out about it like 5 times, just trying to find a Lions fan, and they don't exist, I guess, which is wild considering it's the Lions, and we all know how vocal their fan base is. But because of that, instead, we're going to be joined by a man who, despite wearing a Lions jersey, is a fan of no team because apparently that makes you too biased. To my right, I'm joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Patrick Cipher, also known as No Huddle NFL. So before we jump into this, how are you doing today, man?
Let me just say really quick, despite the fact I'm not a fan of teams, I still have people saying, shut up, Steelers fan.
Well,
I
you
don't
got
get it.
Steelers stuff in the back of your videos from time to time.
Yeah, I
You
know.
expect
But
people
like
to
I
listen to
have
what
I
you're
have the
saying.
Buccaneers thing in the background right now.
Mm-hmm.
Above me, I have a Derrick Henry picture. Right next to a Jack Lambert picture, but still.
So what
All
you're
right,
saying is you're a bandwagon.
I have a signed Darius Leonard jersey. Was Darius Leonard ever on a good team? Shaquille Leonard now, but he was Darius Leonard at the time he
Was going
signed
to
it.
say, respect his name. Don't dead name
Well,
Shaquille Leonard.
I'm looking at the signature, and at the time it was Darius. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Last thing I want to do is be disrespectful. I also feel very disrespectful wearing a fake Barry Sanders jersey.
I
Real
didn't even
diehard.
realize that was Barry. I thought that was some obscure lion from like the mid 2010s.
Yeah. So, story behind this jersey, really quick. When I was a young buck, or it might have even been my brother's idea when he was a young buck, he was on Madden, like any young boy. It was probably Madden 13, right? And Barry Sanders gets an ultimate team card or something, and I guess he was dominant, really damn good in that game. And because of that, my brother was begging for a Barry Sanders jersey, despite never watching him play because at the moment he's only 20. And I guess he didn't want to wait or something. I really don't know, but he was begging for it so much. And it got to a point where they just bought whatever one would come first. And that was this fake Barry Sanders jersey. That's like the 2010 uniform.
Mm-hmm.
But Barry Sanders obviously retired in 2000. So, whatever. I'm making an effort right now, Lions fans. All right? Listen, if it weren't for me, he would still be searching for someone to have on. And I'm going to give you a lot of respect, Detroit. Don't you worry. You are getting some of the best representation that money could buy. That's a Better Call Saul reference. I'm trying my best. Much like Detroit.
Perfectly put. But speaking of trying your best, I think that's a perfect way to describe what the Lions season was last year because they really did try their best. They finished with a 9-8 record, to put them second in the NFC North. They were 5-4 at home and 4-4 on the road, and then 4-1 in their last 5, really starting to heat things up at the end of the season. But I think to talk about the Lions last year, the best place to start is to talk about their defense because let's get the hard pill to swallow out of the way. It was not good. I will say in the second half of the year it was at least okay, but in the first half of the year, oh my god! I mean,
you said it.
it was really, really, really bad, and the reason for that is because Aaron Glenn and the Detroit Lions, God love him, came out and said, you know what? Fuck it. Cover 0 every play. Every single play. They just manned up their corners, sent the house. It was like playing Madden online, but real. And, That's very like Lions Dan Campbell way to play the sport. So mad respect to him. So with these videos, I've been just kind of asking questions as we go along. So my first question here for you is, what do you think about that? What are your thoughts on the fuck it cover zero or we're fucked? Like,
So there are very clear coverages in this league that I don't want to necessarily consider crutches for the corner. But if some were considered crutches, cover 1 and cover 0 all the time would not be considered one of them. And Detroit, you would think that they had Deion Sanders and Darrelle Revis with how much they were just lining up man to man. The amount of confidence that they had in Jeff Okudah and just these absolute straight up bozos, it's beyond me. It is beyond me. I don't understand what exactly made them say, "Oh yeah, we're just gonna trust Jeff Okudah to go one-on-one with Devontae Adams or just anyone." They couldn't guard anyone. The only time that it worked was when that pressure that they were sending, and they did send a lot of pressure, ended up getting to the quarterback. But a lot of the time, the corners and the D-backs just couldn't guard the receivers long enough for that pressure that they were sending to get to the quarterback. I mean, these defensive coordinators, they have their ideologies, and they're going to stay stubborn to them. A lot of these guys don't change what they're doing depending on their roster. But that's the difference between the good DCs and the great ones. The great ones are the ones that notice, okay, you know what? Maybe we have a little bit of a liability at the corner position. So we're going to change it up. We're going to try and help them. They didn't really do that. And because of that, they suffered the consequences.
Yeah. I mean, I agree 100%. It's tough. Like you said, it's really hard to take a defense seriously when the entirety of their structure is predicated on relying on their corners to lock somebody down. And their corners are Jeff Okudah, Mike Hughes, Amani Arawarie, and whoever else. Jerry Jacobs, I'd lump in there, but he was actually pretty solid last year, considering, being a former UDFA, shout out to him. But it was not a serious cornerback room. And they came out every week like they were playing the Bears. They were playing every team like the wide receivers sucked and the offensive line was a bunch of pushovers, and that just wasn't the case a lot of the time. And obviously, this wasn't the case the whole season. In the back half of the season, they kind of changed things. And I don't know about you, but from me going back and watching the tape and going week by week with the Lions, the last week I really noticed the cover zero phenomena was against the Dolphins. And in this game, they were telling the Dolphins, hey, we're going to play cover zero every play. You need to beat us. And they said,
That is not
okay,
a team you
Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, run.
Yeah.
And Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill beat them every single play. And suddenly you're looking at the Lions like, oh, they're a laughingstock. They're a total joke. And that's when Aaron Glenn kind of pulled everything together and he was like, all right, this isn't going to work. And they started changing things up a little bit, and they looked a lot better. Their defense still wasn't great. Looking at some of the numbers here, they finished, where is it? They finished, that's not the right number. They finished 30th in pass defense EPA per play. I have 40th written down because apparently I'm illiterate. They weren't that bad.
I mean, they might as well have been 40th.
Right. They might as well have been worse than like the entirety of the XFL. But no, they were 30th in the league in pass defense EPA per play. And then looking at how often they ran different coverages, they ended up 15th in cover zero. But that comes from not running it, I don't think, once in the second half of the year. So, that tells you where they were. Cover one, they still ended up second in the league. Cover two, which is kind of what they relied on in the back half of the year, ended up 8th in the league. Cover three, which they run a lot on early downs, 23rd. Quarters, they didn't like to run at all. They were 30th in the league. And then quarter, half, which is how A lot of teams like to match up against trips nowadays. They were 13th, which is weird considering that most teams that run quarter, quarter, half run a lot of quarters, and they didn't. And then cover 5, which is just Sabanese for cover 2 man, they were second in the league. So after cover 0 didn't work, they said, okay, let's just run cover 2 every play. And it kind of worked. Not like
Well,
they
that
went
helps the
from
safeties.
right. They went
I mean, it
from
helps the corners
right. They
a
went
decent
from
amount.
awful to mid. Is what we're looking at, which progress.
And with that offense,
Right.
and we're going to get to it,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, mid is fine. You can win a lot of games with
Yeah.
mid in that offense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But like we said, it was just a very, very aggressive defense for better or for worse, if we're being honest. Definitely for worse. Like looking at their blitzing numbers on true pass situations on third down, they were top of the league in blitzing. They were 10th in the NFL on third and medium with 42% of their plays being some sort of blitz. And then on third and long, so like third and 7 yards or more, they were number 1 in the NFL with 53.5% of all of their plays called on third and 7 or longer being a blitz. Which again, very Dan Campbell, just very, very aggressive, in your face. We're going to eat you and you're going to deal with it. And a lot of teams just said, okay, cool. And it weren't faced by it.
Something
Because
I find interesting about that, though, I'm sorry to cut you
no,
off.
go ahead.
They very clearly were blitzing mainly for the sake of pass rush, because when it came to short yardage situations, they only blitzed the 18th most. So it tells you like they were mainly doing that because of either a lack of confidence in the pass rush, which I don't really get, or what I think is the more likely possibility, they only want their cornerbacks to need to cover for a little bit. Maybe they're confident in, I don't know, the receiver gets a bad release and the corners can make up for that.
Right.
Right? Maybe they're hoping for that, but the point is their ideology was mainly blitz, not necessarily to stop the run, although they still did it 18th. That's around the league average, obviously. They mainly blitzed in order to get pressure, which is just strange, but not flawed. It's strange.
Yeah, it was just a clear example, like you said earlier, of a defensive coordinator being not stuck in their ways, but really refusing to go away from what they know and what they're good at. At least in the first half. Again, in the back half of the season, different story. But that first half of the season, the Lions defense was absolutely atrocious. And it's so funny because despite moving on from it in the back half of the year, and we'll talk about the moves they made in the offseason, obviously, here in a little bit. But the moves in the offseason tell me that they want to go back to it. It's like they admitted defeat last year, halfway through the season. They waved the white flag. And then they just said, okay, let's completely revamp the secondary, get rid of everybody, and start from scratch and just find guys who are really good at exactly what we want to do. And obviously, if I'm picking up on that as a 20-year-old college kid, then surely the other 31 teams in the NFL are picking up on this, which tells me that the Lions are just really embracing this mentality of, you know what we're going to do. We know exactly what we're going to do, but we don't care. Try and stop it. Try and beat it. And call me crazy. And I know I'm not the first person to come up with this comparison. I'm actually taking it from somebody, but I thought it was perfect. This is very like 2000 Ravens mindset, where again, it's just everyone knows what you're going to do and you're really confident that it doesn't matter. And I respect that. Again, I'm sure I'll say this a billion times during this episode. Very Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell does not give a fuck. And I know I have said fuck way too many times in this episode. I sound like a 13-year-old that just learned the word. But tell me when you think Dan Campbell, you can't imagine that man saying fuck every 5 minutes. Like behind closed doors, it just, and, just like in a way to hype people up, like we're going to go fucking eat them. We're going to go fuck their kneecaps up, like that kind of thing, right? But yeah, unless you have anything else to say about their defense last year, I think we can move on and talk about something a little bit more positive.
Mhm.
Oh no, I guess we're talking about the back end of the defense. Let's talk about up front because their run defense was atrocious as well.
Yeah.
They
I
were,
mean, if you need evidence, Panthers game. Watch
yeah,
that. You would think Donta Foreman is Derrick
Nick
Henry.
Chubb. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, either. You would
Yeah.
think he's both.
You
I
would,
mean,
yeah.
he was averaging, I believe, 7.9 yards per carry, which is absurd.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's reflected when you look at the numbers again, looking at EPA per play. 29th in rush defense EPA per play. It was not good. It really wasn't. And I don't know. What do you think? What do you think was the root of that? Do you think it's the way the defenses ran, considering it's, a 4-3 base? And I know a lot of people nowadays, at least from what I hear, maybe this is way off base, but I've heard a lot of people nowadays like question the 4-3 against the run. And then obviously like their linebackers weren't great. And their defensive line, especially in the interior, needed a little bit of work. Like what would you say was the main cause for the run defense really being bad?
Lack of personnel. I
Yeah.
mean, it's that simple. I'm not going to dive into X's and O's here. I mean, you look at it, you watch the film, Aleem McNeil, he's a young guy, and I have confidence he's going
Mm-hmm.
to get more of a understanding of how to shed blocks. But at the moment, not too great. Even Aiden Hutchinson, he was good,
Mm-hmm.
but he wasn't good enough to make up for what was going on at the
Right.
other three spots on the
He's not a
defensive
world
line.
beater as a run defender.
Exactly. And no one thought he would be. No one
Right.
thought he would
Right.
be. The linebacker core, I mean, people criticize the Jack Campbell pick, and I get it. I'm not even a major Jack Campbell fan. But if you're Detroit, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It does. They need someone that could really help you beat the run, right? And the great thing about bringing in an off-ball linebacker, and I know there's a lot of evidence to the position maybe not being the best way to build your defense.
Who cares?
Yeah, the thing is, instead of needing to spend a first round pick in order to get a complimentary edge rusher and another like second rounder to bring in an interior guy and drop how much are interior defensive linemen going for now? Like 10 million on a free agent per year. Like, no, instead of doing that, let's just bring in one good linebacker. Yeah, he won't entirely patch up every hole, but now instead of those runs going for 30 yards, it's just going for 5.
Mm-hmm.
It raises your ceiling, raises your floor of what you're able to do against the run. You might not be able to get as many tackles for loss as you would like, but you're stopping the runs at least somewhat close to the line of scrimmage, and now you have more, 3rd and 2s instead of it being, oh, it's first and 10, and they ran the ball once, got 20 yards. Now it's 1st and 10 again. They ran it again, got 10 yards. No, now you're getting, oh, they ran it on first and 10. Now we got to stop. It's 2nd and 6. Maybe not the most ideal, but hey, we could live with that. They run it again. Okay, now it's 3rd and 2. Now you have to beat us. Right? It's a much different scenario all of a sudden. It really helps you. Were there better picks? Sure. But I definitely like it from Detroit's perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get more into the draft here in a little bit. I agree though. I love Jack Campbell. I think he's a fantastic fit for Detroit. It was definitely necessary. And then like talking about the personnel, because I agree that was the big issue. Um, looking at Alex Anzalone as your number one linebacker, and I know they brought him back, but he'll be in a different role now. If Alex Anzalone is the best linebacker you have, you are in bad shape. He's solid. He's a good second or third guy, but he cannot be the top dog in your defense at the linebacker position. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're
Especially
Brandon
when you're
Staley.
lacking on the line of scrimmage.
Right. And then you look to the opposite side of the defensive line, and you have James Houston, who's like a situational pass rusher, smaller dude, just really fast. Charles Harris is pretty solid, but again, pretty solid is not enough to make up for 2 of your 4 defensive linemen not being good run defenders, or any of your linebackers being good run defenders. I mean, the defense as a whole was such just a bad unit again in the first half of the year. And then the second half of the year, once the coverage started to step up, it became lackluster. And a big reason why it was lackluster and still not good or even average is because of that run defense, because they couldn't stop the run to save their lives. And I know it's a passing league. I don't care. You still need to be able to stop the run, because there are still teams in this league that are going to prioritize the run. They're or not prioritize the run, but they're going to run the ball if you can't stop it. And you got to deal with 2 of those in your division right now, in Chicago and Green Bay. Would be 3. I just don't know what Minnesota's doing at running back. I don't know if they think Alexander Madison's the number 1 guy or not, but you got to deal with 2 of those in your division. And then you look at the other big running backs in the NFC. You got CMC, you got Saquon, you've got oh my God, I'm completely blanking. Bijan Robinson, who was just taken in the top 10 and is considered to be this generational prospect. Like, you're going to have to deal with a lot of really good running teams in the NFC. Philadelphia, they don't have like a standout guy, but they're fantastic on the ground. Miles Sanders in Carolina. Like, there's a lot of really good runners of the football in the NFC. And if you want to be taken seriously, you're going to have to be able to stop the run. And they're going to be better at it this year, just by the personnel changes they made.
A difference too. Josh Pascal, someone that a lot of people seem to have forgotten about. He was injured for a large portion of last year.
Mm-hmm.
He was a mid-second round pick. I'm not going to act like this guy's Khalil Mack. All right, I'm not. But it should be a big difference. I think a rotation of him, Okwara, and James Houston should be really, really dangerous and really beneficial for this Detroit team that needs help against the run. Now maybe you have James Houston there on passing downs, but when it's, 1st and 10 or, an obvious running situation, you think, depending on the other team's tendencies, you think the team's going to run the ball, then you put Pascal on the field. And I think that's going to be big for them. I do. Again, he's not a stud, but I think he can defend the run well. And that's what they need.
Yeah. I won't lie. I am someone who forgot about Josh Pascal. So that's another really good point. Something I wouldn't have even thought of. Probably would have gotten around to it when we look at the overall roster here. But yeah, just as a whole, the defense for Detroit is going to be the big X factor, I think, for the team as a whole. Because, and we'll talk about them here in just a moment, the offense looked great. And the offense got better and kept Ben Johnson, which is the big thing. So, right, if the defense can step up, then the Lions can be really fucking scary.
Lou Anarumo staying and Ben Johnson staying are 2 things that make no sense to me. There is no reason whatsoever that those 2 should not be head coaches right now. And the Lions should be praying up to whatever God they believe in. Probably Barry Sanders.
No, it's Mars, the god of war. We all know the Lions worship war.
Yeah, I mean, my point is, though, whatever God they believe in, they need to be praying to him that Ben Johnson, just for whatever reason, continues to refuse head coaching jobs. And I don't even know if he refused them. Maybe for whatever reason, I have a really hard time believing this, but maybe for whatever reason, teams didn't want to bring him in, which beyond me.
Right.
But still, this guy should be a head coach right now, and it is a blessing that he isn't.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, speaking of Ben Johnson, moving over to the offense here, and this is another one of the big questions I have. Based off last season and him still being relatively young, he's below the age of 30. Do we think the Lions want to go with Jared Goff long term? Like, do we think the Lions can be a serious football team that is contending for a title if they build around Jared Goff?
I don't think they're against doing that. but I also don't think they're against moving on. I'm sorry if that's not enough of a definitive taking a side answer.
Yeah, sorry,
as you might wish.
I need a left or right so I can use this for clicks. I need you to take a side in this debate. You either hate Jared Goff or you think he's the second coming of Christ. There is no in between. How
Yeah, I
dare
mean,
you have a reasonable expectation for this young man? How dare you think that he's just, someone that you're okay with keeping or okay with replacing? According to the internet, that is blasphemy.
yeah, I'm sorry to be Mr. Boring over here, but the reality is they drafted Hendon Hooker for a reason. And it's not because they definitively are like, oh yeah, Hendon Hooker is absolutely our future, no matter what we're moving on to him. The reason was it was good value. They saw someone who might be able to start in the future, but if he isn't, we have a career backup, and that's great, right? They have an entire rookie contract to look at him every single day in practice, in training camp, and they'll really see the answer to your question through that. And even if it's not Hendon Hooker, then they either stick with Jared Goff or they draft another guy who falls way further than he should, at least in most people's mind. I'm not the biggest Hendon Hooker fan, but
Not either.
yeah. I mean, he's good. Like, he's not trash.
Yeah.
Definitely not. But
Again,
I mean, we'll
get into
a lot
him.
of NFL teams like him. But my overall point is it really depends on Hooker, and it depends on whatever other young quarterbacks that they add because of great value.
Right.
It does. But I think right now it's pretty safe to assume Goff is there for at least the next 5 years, 4 years, 3 years. Probably at least the next 3 years, and then 5 years. I think it's fair to go back to this assessment.
Yeah, Jared Goff could be on the Lions from anywhere from like the end of next year to 5 years down the line. I agree.
Yeah,
100%.
that's what I meant. Thank you for.
Yeah, I got you. But yeah, I mean, even though I was giving you shit for it, I do agree. Like, I think it's reasonable to say that the Detroit Lions can win football games with Jared Goff at the helm because they did it last year. And even the games that they lost, it was close. The Lions lost a lot of dogfights. And Jared Goff, I know he's not the most exciting quarterback. He's not the flashiest quarterback. He's not even the best quarterback, but he's good. He is a good quarterback. He is an above average quarterback. And the big
It's
thing
also
with him,
worth mentioning.
Yep.
Again, sorry to cut you
No,
off.
you're good. You're good.
They're in the NFC. They don't need to have this Mahomes tier, this Lamar Jackson tier, this Joe Burrow tier quarterback. The only real top tier quarterback, and correct me if I'm missing someone, but the only real top tier quarterback that they have to be worried about facing off against in the playoffs is Jalen Hurts. Besides him, I mean, Rodgers gone. Who are
I'd
you
make an
worried
argument
about?
for Dakota.
Oh,
I'd
Dak?
make an argument for Dakota.
Maybe. We need to see him bounce back. But still, you get my point.
No, I get you. I just wanted to
worried
nitpick
about
because that's me.
They don't
But
have to be worried
yeah,
about getting into these shootouts, and that really helps.
yeah. And to branch off of that, the big thing with Goff is he's an incredibly efficient passer. He's not afraid to take his checkdowns. He's not afraid to get the ball or throw the ball short. In fact, I think they were like top 10 in yards after the catch, if I'm not mistaken, last year, because Goff was really just willing to check it down and let his guys cook after the catch. And they have guys that are good at doing that. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, when he's not, nose buried in his phone on Underdog or whatever fantasy site he uses. They've got guys that can cook underneath, and then you add Jameson Williams into that. Even David Montgomery's really good after the catch as a running back. Like, they've got guys that complement what Jared Goff does really well. And hell, if you're cooking underneath and something opens up downfield, it's not like Goff can't hit it. Like you said, he's not Mahomes. He's not Allen. He's not Herbert. He's not even like Justin Fields, where you're just really good at getting the ball downfield consistently. That's not him. But he can do it when it's needed. Goff can step up when needed. Like, I feel like people forget this dude went to a Super Bowl. And this wasn't like Jimmy G went to a Super Bowl where he was just kind of there. Like, he was good that year. He had a really good run for the Rams that year where he was winning games for them. he wasn't carried by his defense. His defense was great, but he played very well.
And what was the key thing that really helped him? Besides Todd Gurley, what was the key thing that really, really helped him?
Oh, shit, you're going to make me look dumb on my own show.
Well, there's a lot of things that helped
Right,
him.
right. I'm trying to pinpoint what you're
Guy
referring to.
whose
The
name
offensive
started with
mind. Is
"Thank
that
you
what we're
very
talking
much."
about? Okay, yeah.
Yes. And what
Okay.
does he have here in Detroit?
Yeah,
A beautiful offensive mind in Ben
okay.
Johnson. That's the key. You can win in the NFC when you don't have to face off against these elite passers every other week in the playoffs. You can win enough games to make it to the Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl when your quarterback can just execute your offense.
Right.
If you have the right guy calling plays, designing plays. And the Lions do. And that's why it works for Jared Goff. If they lose Ben Johnson, we might be talking about this team very differently. And all of a sudden, it becomes way more of a necessity for them to replace Jared Goff. But because they still have that absolute genius, they're in a great spot.
Ben Johnson's biggest fan, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, see, listen, okay, just for context, this Patrick fella over here, he likes to get a little harebrained with some of his points. He always brings it back to reality, but he likes to start out a little goofy with, asking very ominous questions and then bringing you back to the obvious. So, I mean, like, my point is, you could have meant a million different things when you said, what was the thing?
You're right. You're right.
Yeah, Sean McVay was definitely the thing.
I thought
clarifying
no Todd Gurley made it kind of direct. I mean,
it did, but still, that Rams team was really good. I was thinking about a billion different things. Anyways, enough of me trying to excuse myself for being an idiot for a moment. Yeah, like you said, Jared Goff is really, really good at just executing an offense. He's not the type of guy that's great at playing out of structure or making things happen himself. But if you give him a play, you give him a playbook, he's going to run it, and he's going to run it well. And that's all the Lions need right now. Like you were saying, I can't remember if it was on camera or off camera. I think it was off camera. If Goff can continue to execute, and this defense in Detroit is just average, the Lions can be really scary, especially with how bad the NFC is right now. And even especially with how many question marks there are in the NFC North. Because the Bears have potential, the Packers have potential, the Vikings are in a weird spot. Like, it's kind of the Lions' division to lose right now, as much as I hate to say it. In a big reason for that is just because of the floor your offense has with Jared Goff and Brad Johnson. I think
just waiting for the Run the North podcast episode where they have they have a representative for every single team in the NFC North except for the one that won the division.
Oh, I mean, find me a Lions fan. That's the thing. There's no Lions fans that want to create content. I had one guy, I should say, I did have one guy send me a DM, but and he was actually supposed to come on, and I had to hit you up last minute, even though it ended up not becoming last minute because of delays. He had something come up, so he didn't get to come on. So shout out to him. He knows who he is. I don't know if he'll end up watching this or not. But other than him, where are they at? Like, they're all, like, I don't know, maybe this is just the Bears fan in me coming out, but, like, they're very vocal, and I mean, for good reason. There's a lot to be excited about right now in Detroit. But they're all vocal on Twitter, all vocal on TikTok, YouTube, wherever. And then as soon as it comes down to, hey, you want to come talk about your team? They go hide in the bushes.
They just don't want to talk to a Bears fan, I guess.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm being nice, I feel like. I'm not going to shit on the Lions too much. Like,
take back everything you said about Aaron Glenn in order to get them back.
Oh, it's not Aaron Glenn's fault that he knows a good way to run a defense and his players sucked. All the guys that made that defense bad are gone at this point. But yeah, I mean, overall, Ben Johnson, good. That's good for the Lions.
You also didn't mention the best thing about the Detroit offense.
Go ahead.
Offensive line.
Oh, well, yeah.
Oh, were you going to talk about something else?
Let's
talk about your thing first.
Yeah, well, I was going to say maybe I didn't I probably didn't tell you this beforehand, but we usually go back and talk about position by position. I just wanted to cover the pass game and then the run game, and then we can go back to the offensive line because they deserve their own thing.
All
Because
right,
oh my
that's fair.
God, they are such a good unit. I mean, it's insane how good that offensive line is.
The Dan Campbell mentality is just
Mm-hmm.
100% shown by that offensive line.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
and
punch
it's
you in the mouth.
mm-hmm.
And just look at the stuff they ran last year. This is why I kind of wanted to mention it here because I want to
Yeah.
mention their
Go
play
ahead.
calling.
Go ahead, because I was about to say the same thing actually.
Yeah, last year they were 24th in inside zone. So they were not a big zone team. And in case you didn't
Mm-hmm.
know, zone is what these, I don't want to say these scrawny offensive linemen like more, but that's kind of what that's built more for the quick, oh, we're going to outmaneuver you,
The
boring
Shanahan
loser stuff.
offenses of the
Yeah,
world.
yeah, exactly. Although they
So
obviously
so
still
the
have their mouth
better
called.
blocking scheme.
Sure. Say what you want. But the reality is when I see Penny Sewell pulling, I wet myself a little bit. I'm not gonna lie.
I can't blame you.
And oh boy, do they like their pulling guys because they are
Mm-hmm.
fifth in power.
Mm-hmm.
Power is we're just better than you on the line of scrimmage, so we're just gonna run this
Crash
play.
down on one side, then bring the other side across. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they were 13th in duo, which is another, we're just better than you. We're just gonna run this
Mm-hmm.
play. And they were also 6th in counter, which is
Mm-hmm.
yet another, we are going to physically abuse you play.
Mm-hmm.
And this Detroit offensive line loves to do just that. Physically abuse you, play after play after play. That's what they do. It is once again, Dan Campbell's entire mentality as a coach is personified by this offensive line.
Yeah. And it's so funny because as much as it's personified in the offensive line, outside of Jamal Williams, the other running back in Detroit last year was the polar opposite and also not good. And that's DeAndre Swift,
He had a
obviously.
role.
He was there.
He had a role. He had a role, and he played that role to a level.
He played it. He did indeed play that role.
I mean, like, I'm not gonna rave about the guy, but I mean, he did what they asked him to.
Kinda.
Decently. Like he wasn't the best at it, but he was decent at that third
He,
down back receiving guy role.
yeah. I mean, yeah. That's what he's a scat back.
Yeah,
That's what he is. It's just
mainly with that receiving back emphasis, but yeah.
yeah. It's just when you look at the hype DeAndre Swift has gotten
And
throughout his
that's the problem.
career,
That is the
yeah,
problem.
it
Yeah,
is.
I
That's kind of
agree.
my point here.
Mhm.
Is you hear people talk about DeAndre Swift, and I know it's mainly the fantasy football people, and we don't talk about them. They're in their own little corner, away from everybody with the light off. But they hype up this guy. Oh, he's gonna be the big breakout. He's gonna do everything for the Lions this year. He's just do it all back. And then they just say, okay, fuck you. We're just gonna run Jamal Williams anytime we get inside the 15-yard line, and then he's gonna score like a billion touchdowns, and then DeAndre Swift's just kind of there. And I love that.
2019 Jameis Winston was considered a good quarterback in fantasy. That tells you everything you need to know about fantasy football.
Yeah. Yeah. The point being DeAndre Swift, he's a fine third down back. He's a
Yeah.
fine second, third running back on your team, preferably as your third. You kind of only want to use him on third downs, but he's not that great. And that's to say that Detroit took both of their, and again, we'll talk about this more when we get to the offseason, but they took both of their running backs and they just said, let's get a better version of that. And they did it. That was like their big offseason plan. Literally, we can get into the offseason now, unless you want to bring up anything else. I guess I should say real quick, just for reference with their offense, fourth in passing EPA per play, 15th in rushing EPA per play. So one of the best pass games in football, pretty mediocre run game. And then in terms of scoring, they were, I've got the number here. They were fifth in points scored, 29th in points allowed, so ninth in point differential with 26 points. So moving
Also
on.
9-8, second in the division.
Yeah, yeah.
in case anyone was unaware of that. In that case, why are you here? But all
Right.
right.
Especially considering I already mentioned it earlier.
All right. Fuck you too.
But moving on to the offseason, I think we should probably talk about the losses first. And normally, this is when I'd turn to the fans I'm talking to and say, which loss hurts the most? Because everyone has a free agent that hurts them, right? But as someone who's not really a Lions fan, it's a little bit different. So put yourself in the shoes of a Lions fan for a moment. Out of their free agent losses, which one do you think hurts the most? And I'm not just talking about like in terms of on field production. Like, which one just to your core would hurt you if you were a Detroit Lions fan? Whether it's because of how they were on the field, off the field, some goofy memory, whatever it may be.
Uh,
I feel
so
like there's a pretty obvious answer here.
One of the main things that I was going to mention was how they lost seemingly no one. So I'm looking up their losses really quick because
If you don't know,
I'm,
I can just say who it would be.
Can you say the options and then I'll.
Well, okay. So the big
If it's a
free agents they
no-brainer if you know it.
lost. Okay, DJ Chark, Amani
Okay,
Arawarie,
yeah.
Jeff Okuda, Mike Hughes, DeAndre Swift, Michael Brockers, Evan Brown, and Jamal Williams.
So I knew that they lost Chark.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to think it's Jamal Williams when it isn't because running back.
Okay.
What?
I
running
disagree.
back and they just brought.
Again, when I'm saying which one hurts the most, it doesn't just have to be the on the field. When you think about Jamal Williams, it's not just the on the field. The dude's one of the best locker room guys in football.
Yeah.
He was a fan favorite. It's the same as the Bears losing David Montgomery. Like, sure, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a huge deal. But again, it's different because you're not a fan of the team, but it hurts you to your core because it's like, this guy, I love him. He's fun in the little TikTok videos that get made and the press conferences. And, you got Jamal Williams pulling up with his Naruto headbands and talking about his favorite Pokemon and his favorite anime. Like, he's hip with the kids. He's a lovable guy. He now holds the single season record for rushing touchdowns. Like, that's a Detroit fan favorite. And you just let him walk like that. As a Lions fan, that's gotta hurt. Even if he's replaceable.
Still
gotta hurt.
I mean, sure. But you look at the receivers that are suspended. I think losing Chark is a pretty important thing, no?
Yeah, no, I agree.
So I feel like that would be more of again, I get the entire locker room guy. I know that's obviously important.
Listen, I know you're removed from football teams and you're this cold-hearted asshole, but believe it or not, people form emotional connections to players.
No, I'm aware.
And sometimes it hurts when they leave.
I'm aware.
Yeah.
Like, sure. Yeah. But Dan Campbell's also a big character guy.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, when it comes to big character guys, I kind of just assume they'll be able to maintain the locker room with or without the big character players.
Yeah, and
I know that's an inhumane way to look at it.
Look at Mr. Big over here. Yeah, the fucking Onceler from the Lorax. How bad can I be? Shut up.
No, I mean, it's important. It's important. I'm not going to act like, it doesn't matter. But I think it's also pretty important to have a vertical presence on the offense while Jameson Williams is hurt. Or not hurt, suspended. And also hurt. He gets hurt sometimes. My point is, they don't really have someone like that. DJ Chark played that role. Jameson Williams being out. Yeah. I mean, again, I think Jamal Williams is also important, but they also brought in another guy who just helped kind of just replace him. Did they pay a decent amount of money to him at the same time? Yeah, but I'm not worried about any of these losses, though. That's exactly why I didn't have anything written down, and I needed you to recite that list. Because I look at all these losses, and I guess DJ Chark is a decently big one. I honestly almost forgot about that. But I don't really think any of these are a big deal. I'm going to be honest.
In terms of just talent, no. But when you look at not even just locker room, but just the amount of snaps you're losing, right? Like they lost four defensive backs. Amani Arawarie played 42% of snaps last year. Deshaun Elliott played 76% of snaps. Mike Hughes played roughly 50% of snaps. And Jeff Okuda played roughly 50% of snaps. Like, that's a lot of snaps just leaving. And obviously, those guys are replaceable. They're not great, but it's still significant when you have that, like, literally half of your defense that played half of the year for you is now just gone. And we'll get into the guys I just signed here in a moment because they've replaced them all. But before we do that, I do want to ask, because it is relevant to the Lions, and I kind of forgot about it until just now, the gambling thing. They've lost, what, 3 or 4 players to gambling?
They lost, I believe it might be 4. I'm pretty sure it's 3. I know they lost Cephas, whatever. They lost Jameson Williams, which is obviously the big one. But yeah, it's another thing. You're gonna ask me how I feel about it.
Yeah.
It's another thing where I'm not overly. Jameson Williams is a big one, especially
Right.
with Chark gone. But I'm not overly concerned. I'm not. Listen. It's not the. I'm not saying, oh, if they had him, it's the same exact offense. No.
Okay.
But in terms of how large of an impact on the Falcons season did Calvin Ridley being gone have? That was major.
Yeah, but that team
That
is
was
also in the
huge.
gutter.
Okay. Well, that's what I mean. The Lions are talented enough. They have enough pieces to be able to make up for that.
Yeah, but losing out on your big speed threat and not having him for the first couple games of the season really limits your offense because you're not going to be able to stretch the field as much. Like, they have a guy that maybe can step up into that spot in Antoine Green, who I really like out of UNC, but that's a 6th round pick, and that's asking a lot out of a 6th round pick in his first couple starts, or his first couple games, rather, if he starts. So not having that type of guy, because the rest of the offense, what are we looking at? We're looking at Marvin Jones, who they just signed. He's not stretching the field for you. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's not stretching the field for you. Unless I'm forgetting some random speedster, like somehow Marquise Goodwin ended up on this team and I completely skipped over it. I've got their depth chart pulled up in front of me. What am I doing? I can just look at it.
Josh Reynolds.
It
He's not Jameson Williams, I know, but he can get it done.
I guess, and okay, Khalif Raymond is there
Him
too.
too.
I almost trust him more than Josh Reynolds. So I guess it's not that bad.
It's
Okay.
not. That's what I mean. You look at the receiver core; it's a deep unit. But again, I'm going back to my boy Ben
Your
Johnson.
glorious king.
In BJ, we trust.
All right.
Take that how you will, in whatever way you want.
All right.
But I'm big on him and his ability to make. He has the tools. Again, I know Josh Reynolds isn't a flashy name, neither is Khalif Raymond. But with a guy like that, and when you have a slot as good as Amon-Ra St. Brown, it opens stuff up for everyone.
Yeah.
And when you have a speedy playmaker like the controversial first-round pick, Jahmyr Gibbs, even more things open up. And then when you have a very versatile tight end like Laporta, who I know some people don't like too much, but personally, I'm a decently big fan of him, that also opens stuff up. My point is just overall, there are so many tools for this offensive mastermind to work with. And I find it very difficult to believe that the loss of one of those many tools is going to be an extremely oh my God, season's over type of deal.
Yeah, I can understand that. Like I said, I kind of forgot Khalif Raymond was there, and Khalif Raymond has been kind of solid for the Lions in the past, and that's what he is. He's speedy. So if Ben Johnson can make him work, which he almost certainly can, then I guess it's not that big
I mean,
of a
he
deal.
has.
Right.
As a depth guy, he's put up decent numbers.
Yeah. Now, moving on from that, just listing off the free agents they kept around because there wasn't really anybody too big. Alex Anzalone, he's coming back. Brock Wright, who was actually okay shit. Why can't I think of his name? TJ Hawkinson. In TJ Hawkinson's
Oh,
departure, he was actually pretty okay. Will Harris, one of these do-it-all defensive backs that they have like a billion of. Romeo Aquara, nice depth. Michael Badgley, the money badger, looked really nice last year on like 6 different teams, it felt like. Isaiah Buggs, who's a nice rotational defensive tackle. Charles Harris, who's a nice rotational edge. Like, they did a good job of keeping guys around. Like, I feel like the guys they kept around kind of outweigh the ones that left. And I don't know if you want to talk about any of them any more than I already did. I don't know if any of them justify talking about them any more than I already did.
I mean, Anzalone is important, right? He's obviously not even because of what he brings to the field. He's another one of the guys, the intangibles, right? And
Right.
I know how much it seems like I'm a non-intangible guy because I almost shat on Jamal Williams. But I really do think his ability to kind of be the commander of the defense for them is very important to this team.
Yeah.
Every team needs someone like that. All good defenses need someone like that. And I think Anzalone plays that role. And like you said, a lot of those guys are really just depth guys. So I'm not.
Yeah. And I mean,
They need to
they're
have depth,
they're
obviously.
good depth
And
guys too. It's
yeah.
not like these are no names. Like Charles Harris and Isaiah Buggs, for example, have
Mm-hmm.
played really well for the
Yeah.
Lions.
What
Aquara as
worries me
well.
about Bugs is that he might be more than a depth guy for them, and I don't love that.
Yeah, that's fair.
Might be. But
Might be.
still, as a depth guy, and they're paying him like a depth guy, if I'm correct.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good value still. If they get more out of him than they probably should, who's going to complain about that,
Right.
right? So, yeah, I definitely like how they kept some of these guys around. And I feel like they let the right guys walk.
Yeah. So moving on to the guys they added in free agency, other than the guy that I'm not letting you talk about because I'm going to talk about him because it's my show, is there anyone here that stands out to you as a really good signing for the Lions?
So I think CJ Gardner-Johnson obviously is not that guy. I think that he is an important addition for this team. Obviously, they were struggling at corner last year. We talked about that earlier. And adding someone who could play both the corner role and the safety role is obviously big. And it's also someone to teach someone that we're going to get into later, their second round pick, because they play the identical role, and it's crazy. That's obviously really important. I thought that I thought that adding another player, Cameron Sutton, right? Stud last year. And that's the key thing. Last year was kind of an outlier. I think he is going to be the big guy their season depends on. He's the big, if the season comes down to one guy, if the season is made or broken by one guy, it would be Sutton. I really do think that. And a third corner, because why not? Emmanuel Mosley. Big deal there. I know that he's not a flashy name, so me calling him a big deal is like, what the hell is this guy talking about? But again, they were struggling so much at corner, they had to replace that entire room. And they did. Overall, I felt like they added corners, and that was the big thing. I'm going to leave you with the big addition. We're not talking about the draft right here, right? We're just talking about free agents.
We'll get to that in a moment. So first of all, just to double down on what you said with the corners, we talked about their identity and their secondaries. They want physical corners that are really good man coverage. That is Mosley to a T. He is the perfect corner for this defense. So like you said, to the average NFL enjoyer, that might not seem like this huge deal, but he is such a perfect fit for what they want. Cam Sutton, pretty similar thing. Again, they've got a billion players in the secondary that are super, super versatile. And then CJ Gardner-Johnson, he's just got that attitude that Dan Campbell is going to adore. Like, CJ is not afraid to run his mouth, but he backs it up. And that's the type of guy that Dan Campbell's going to be like, yeah, he's going to eat some kneecaps, right? If there's a DB in the NFL that would eat your kneecaps, it's probably JL Skinner, but CJ Gardner-Johnson is a very close second.
And he'd steal your chain, too.
Yeah, steal your chain and your kneecaps all in one swoop.
That was him, correct? Am I wrong in saying that?
I think
I remember it was a Saints player. I'm gonna
It
double
had
check
to
this.
have been.
It had to, yeah. He
All I know,
stole it. He
listen, as
stole Javon Wims's, right? Was it Javon Wims?
yeah,
It was.
that
He
was
stole
him.
his chain and then punched him in the face while he had his helmet on, which is a bold strategy.
Well, no, Wims punched him in the face. Yeah,
I don't.
Wims
I'm
and
double
Miller
checking this.
swung on Johnson like idiots because Johnson was in their ear. All like this happened 2 separate games in the regular season, then the playoffs. Wims was getting like Gardner Johnson was running his mouth to Wims because Wims sucks. Wims got mad and swung at him and then claimed he yanked his chain. And then Miller, same thing. He was getting his mouth, or Gardner Johnson was running his mouth at Miller because Miller sucked. Miller got mad. He swung at him. This time on Nickelodeon, which we don't talk about that game. That game was full of a lot of weird things. Jimmy Graham walk-off touchdown. Cordell Patterson yelling, "What the fuck?" while on Nickelodeon.
Oh, wait, not. Oh, that's so disappointing. Javon Wims stole his chain and then did it, and then
Yeah.
punched him. Oh, that's so disappointing. Fuck me.
Yeah, Javon Wims was well, he wasn't disappointed. He
Maybe
was
they
a
want to
seventh
bring
round pick,
Javon
but he was
Wims
a
in
punt.
then. Detroit might be the move.
Oh god. Why would you employ that man? He was awful.
He has the
Anyways,
mentality.
moving on to a former Bear that's actually good. David Montgomery, and I know paying running backs is taboo, blah, blah, blah. He's the perfect fit for this offense. David Montgomery is an old school runner. Super tough, super physical, fantastic vision. He's just your the definition of a one cut back. And you put that into an offense where Dan Campbell's just saying, "Hey, we're bigger than you, we're stronger than you, we're gonna run through you," and his guys are just paving the way for him, opening lanes for him. David Montgomery's gonna eat. And I'm going to tell you right now, I know he's not the big flashy name that Jahmyr Gibbs is. This is your RB1, and he will be your RB1 the entire season. He will get the large majority of the carries. And again, I
Especially
know,
because of the offense thing,
right,
like you said.
because of the offense, because Montgomery's a better pure runner of the football, and he's just a better fit. This is just saying, hey, let's get Jamal Williams, but instead of just running him on the goal line, we can run him anywhere on the field because he actually has a little bit of quickness to him. Monty's not a burner, but he's got a little bit of something there. He's not a pure power back. Like I said, he's one of these like in the middle, jack of all trade one cut backs who you could even leave him in on passing downs if you want because he's a hell of a blocker. And he can catch the ball out of the backfield a little bit. Like if you want a set where you're just going to straight up put Gibbs in the slot and then have Monty in the backfield, that works. Run them both out of the backfield, that works. Like Monty and Gibbs is a great duo because there's a lot of things you can do with them. And it breaks my heart that Monty left. He's one of my favorite players I have ever seen wear a Bears uniform. But he's another guy that, much like Jamal Williams, is a fantastic locker room guy. Granted, in a different way. He's not this outspoken, goofy, like team leader type. He's, hey, I'm going to keep my head down, or not keep my head down. I'm going to keep quiet and observe. And if something's wrong, I'll pull you aside and say something to you, like do what I do. He's someone that just leads by example. He's a very no nonsense, quiet type of football player that just does his job. And Dan Campbell's going to love that. Like, that's what Dan Campbell wants. He wants a guy that's going to do his job or a guy that's going to eat somebody. And Monty's on the tame end of that spectrum. But yeah, he's just so perfect for this offense. And again, that's just the key to this offseason is just, hey, let's just get guys that fit perfectly for what we want. There were a lot of them there, not the flashiest names in the world, but they do their job and they do it well. Another guy that's very much like that is Graham Glasgow, who they added, the offensive guard coming over from Denver. Again, not the flashiest name in the world, but he's going to fit in great with their offensive line. He's going to mold in that room very, very well. I would imagine he starts. I can't think of anybody that would start over
Well,
him.
that's the thing. They have other guys that like
Who am I not
Glasgow.
thinking of?
So obviously, you know that they added. Hold on, I have the names written down. Obviously, you know that they have
They got Big V.
They have Jonah Jackson and then V.
I forgot they brought back
There
Big
you
V. That's where I was getting from. Yeah. So
Do you
at
know how
worst,
to
he's
pronounce
really
his
good
first name?
depth.
Because I can't. Yeah, I'm glad you called him
Listen,
Big
yeah,
V because I was going to try and pronounce his first name.
I mean it's Vitae. I can pronounce that,
Yeah,
but I
Vaitai
can't
I could
pronounce his
pronounce,
last
but
name.
I
Listen,
sometimes I like to flex by pronouncing first names that are hard to pronounce, but that one I could not.
yeah,
Right,
like
continue though. I like point is they have depth, and
they
whether it's
have good
Glasgow
depth.
or yeah,
Like, just to give you an idea of how bad I am with pronouncing names, I called him Chris Olave for 2 months, and then
I
finally
would
someone
never
like,
mispronounce a name like LaShawn McCoy. Me? No,
what? I forget.
never.
How did you say his name?
Lee Sean McCoy.
Lee Sean. That's right, Lee
I
Sean.
exaggerated the first part. That's how I've
Yeah,
always been pronouncing it. I was aware of how much of a stud he was. I was just never corrected in terms of the pronunciation.
bro, never watched a LaShawn McCoy highlight to hear the commentator say his name.
No, I heard the funny snow. I watched the funny snow game.
The funny snow game. Okay, well, yeah, going back to the Lions because we can't get on too much of a tangent. This isn't a normal podcast where we can just goof around. They also
Detroit
signed
fans are already pissed at you that we don't want them anymore. Angry.
um they also signed Marvin Jones, who a good veteran leader for the receiver room, would be a good mentor to the young guys if the young guy wasn't suspended. Um, so that's someone else they might have to rely on a little bit early on.
And I think he's capable. That's
Yeah,
the thing. I think Marvin Jones is very
as like
capable.
as a third option, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. They're so deep, he might not even need to be a third guy.
I think
But
when
if he
Jameson
does,
Williams comes back, he won't. But
well,
right
yeah, but
away, he
even
probably will. Like
I
I'll put it
mean,
this way: I think he's a better football player than Khalif Raymond, or who was the other guy, Josh Reynolds. Yeah,
yeah.
I think
Reynolds
at
I
this
like
point.
because he has the chemistry with Goff, but
I mean, yeah,
but
that's a
now
good
everyone
point.
does. Now everyone does too. Is the
Do you
thing.
have chemistry with Goff?
Everyone on the Detroit Lions 2023 NFL
Yeah,
roster.
so you got to be more specific.
My bad. My bad.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you do in your spare time. Maybe you do have a little chemistry with Goff. I don't know if you guys went and saw Across the Spider Verse together. Maybe. I don't know.
Nah.
What's the new movie that just came out? No Hard Feelings. Maybe you went and
I
saw
thought they were
that.
gonna say Oppenheimer. Jared
First of all, that's
Jared
not
Goff
off.
would love.
That
He
is a
would
Jared
love
Goff movie.
Oppenheimer.
I feel like Jared Goff. I mean, I'm excited for Oppenheimer. I think that's going to be a good movie.
What is it? Christopher? No, it's not
Yeah,
Christopher
Christopher
Nolan.
Nolan.
It is.
It is.
Yeah, I thought
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah, it's a Christopher Nolan movie.
Should have went with my gut. See.
Yeah. But anyways, let's talk about the draft and not the father of the atomic bomb now. Um,
I mean,
they do
there's a
have somebody.
correlation.
Yeah, there is a player that they drafted that could go absolutely nuclear this season. Yeah, look at me. But I'm just going to do this the way I've done this in all the other videos, even though it's been multiple people. It's just you and me here. Who was your favorite pick out of the Lions' entire draft class? And I swear to God, if you take
Branch.
my guy. Okay.
Branch.
Okay. You didn't take my guy. Go ahead. Talk
I
about
mean,
Branch. Tell the people
so
about Brian Branch.
you bring in C.J. Gardner Johnson, then let's bring in the other C.J. Gardner Johnson role, but he's a fucking maniac against a run from the D-back position. I mean,
He's like if CJ Gardner Johnson and the Kyle Hamilton that was hyped up during the draft, not the real Kyle Hamilton. No disrespect to him. He's still
the
solid.
real Kyle Hamilton was more than solid.
He
But
was
yeah,
more than
very different
solid,
player.
but the hype
Different.
Kyle Hamilton, where we thought this was Troy Polamalu and Ed Reed combined into one running a 4-2 or whatever it was. It's like if you take that Kyle Hamilton and CJ Gardner Johnson, they had a baby, and he was just kind of like okay in man coverage, but everything else, he's God.
Yet somehow we're supposed to just be fine with him being a second-round pick.
Right. I mean, he was a top 10 player in the class, easily.
Absolutely. I think position value, sure. Position value, that's
Position
awesome.
value be damned. It's not
Well, not
real.
yeah, exactly. Well, no, it's
No,
real.
it's not real.
It's
I don't
very
care.
real.
It's not real. I'm drafted a fullback in the first round, and I'm going to like it.
It's very real. However, there was no reason that Osiris Torrance should have been a Buffalo Bill in the second round. And there was no reason that Brian Branch should have been a mid-second round pick. Is that correct? Like mid-second round? Yeah.
Somewhere. Yeah, it was their
Yeah.
second round pick.
Yeah. Makes no sense.
Which means the Lions not only got into the second round, and Brian Branch was still on the board. They made a pick in the second round, and then he was still there when they made their second one. How absurd is that? Like, this is a guy I was mocking consistently top 10 to the Eagles. Like, I had the Eagles sitting at 10 and taking Brian Branch like 9 times out of 10 when I did mocks. And he would have fit beautifully there because they lost CJ Gardner-Johnson. But now the Lions said, "Hey Philly, fuck you. We're going to take both of them." And now they win.
Branch is such a good fit, even ignoring the CJ Gardner-Johnson correlation, because I mean, what did they struggle again? I mean, they struggled all over the place on offense, but part of the struggle was, the rush defense and the extra nickel or whatever the hell this guy's going to be that is just pretty much a guy in the box because he's that insane against the run. Yeah, that's big. And another thing that they struggled in that's kind of a niche struggle for them, but it is very important because they play in the same division as Justin Fields. Stopping the QB run, I think Brian Branch is an underrated part of them doing that.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want. You're not stopping Justin Fields running forward, unfortunately.
I mean, he'll stop himself passing, but whatever.
I forgot you don't like Justin Fields. Anyways.
Well, if you don't mind, really quick, you made that entire thing, that TikTok, or I guess it was a clip in the Bears part, where you compared Justin Fields to Spider-Man.
I did.
I think the right Spider-Man to compare him to is Miguel O'Hara in the new Spider-Verse that we just mentioned. Not because he's like insanely good, because
he's a sociopath that wants someone to let their dad die.
No, because he gets so much hype. Because when you watch him, he moves really cool and he does all this cool shit. But in reality, this motherfucker struggled to beat the 1814 Vulture. This motherfucker can't do anything right. He moves cool. That's awesome. I don't care. Throw the football the right way. Or he throws a good ball. So I'm not even going to
have to put a clip at the start of this video saying, disclaimer, Across the Spider-Verse spoilers at 106.
I didn't spoil anything. I spoiled like the first scene.
I know, but it's still a spoiler. No, Justin Fields is the OG.
Well, spoiler alert, Justin Fields,
is
barring some insane 2019 Josh Allen turnaround, is going to remain a terrible passer. And when he eventually can't run the same way, people are going to really, really open their eyes to the fact he ain't that good. Really good runner. And he doesn't actually throw the worst ball ever. But in terms of the mental part of being a quarterback in the NFL, he's not very good at it.
Are you done?
But yeah, Detroit Lions.
Are you done spewing bullshit on my YouTube video?
It's relevant because
are you done being blasphemous?
I have to be a Detroit fan. All right.
Yeah, you sound like every racist Detroit fan ever.
I'm not racist. I think Lamar Jackson is a spectacular
that is the equivalent of saying I'm not racist. I have a black friend.
No, I mean I can name. No, it's
I
not
could
racism.
Name black friends.
It's not racism. I just think that
I know.
Fields. I liked Malik Willis.
I'm not racist. I liked Will Smith's movies. That's
all right, buddy.
I know you're not racist.
I don't like.
I can't tell if you're playing into the bit at this point or really just trying to dig yourself deeper. Like, I know you specifically are not racist, but there's some Lions fans out there that say some very questionable things. Anyways, Brian Branch is your guy. Mine is Jack Campbell. No surprise. I don't care about positional value. Jack Campbell was by far and away the best linebacker in this class. I don't think anybody came close to him. And if I'm going to be extreme, if I'm going to be frank, people like to say baby blank when describing a player. Baby Urlacher. That's what Jack Campbell is. He is, like I've said before, and I'll say it again, Brian Urlacher in today's NFL would be a cheat code because he was 6'5" and still freakishly athletic, not afraid to thump somebody in the run game, but could also cover from sideline to sideline. Essentially, Brian Urlacher is what Bears fans want Tremaine Edmunds to be and what some fans think he already is. Jack Campbell is that, just to a lesser degree.
I'm not as confident in his ability to play man to call him a Edmunds.
Well, no. Again, it's back to Urlacher. It's the Urlacher. Okay. He's closer to Urlacher than Edmunds. Edmunds is just what you want Urlacher to be. If I wasn't clear on that, that's my bad. Point is, is Campbell ever going to be Urlacher? No. Urlacher is one of the 3 best off-ball linebackers ever. He's not going to be that. But he's going to be really damn good. Because you've got a 6'5" linebacker that is fantastic in the run game. I mean, his instincts and his ability to read gaps and read the running back are off the charts. And then in coverage, you've got this guy who's really rangy. Surprisingly, he brings sneaky athletic to a whole new level. He had a 998 RAS score or something stupid like that. Like, everything you want out of the linebacker position, apart from that man coverage, which is a valid criticism, he brings to the table. And putting that in the middle of your defense and saying, hey, we couldn't stop the run last year. Here's Godzilla as a linebacker, and just sending him against the run, beautiful. You put him in coverage, and then you bring Brian Branch down as like a pseudo linebacker. Oh my God. In coverage, forget about it. The middle of the field is gone. Because what's going to happen is Brian Branch is either going to pick your quarterback off and read him perfectly, or Jack Campbell's going to murder your wide receiver over the middle of the field if he isn't able to pick the ball off. Like, I don't know if you've seen his one interception he had against, I want to say it was Ohio State, where quite literally he mirrored a play that Brian Urlacher made in terms of how he caught the ball, where it's just like this crazy one-handed catch up in the back where he's like kind of leaning, almost like a reverse Michael Jordan free throw dunk. Urlacher did it against, I think Brett Favre might have been Aaron Rodgers. Jack Campbell did it against, I think Ohio State. And he's just a freak of nature. And I know you're not as high on him as I am. I don't care. You can go fuck yourself. Wrong.
I was going to say was that I'm not as big of a fan, but you are correct in the role he plays, right? I'm not going to deny that. He definitely plays a role that this team needs. Mm-hmm. I'm not a hater. Like, I like him. I'm just not as big on him as you are. I think it helps an important hole for them.
Absolutely.
And that's the big.
Yeah, you can't deny that Jack Campbell has a clear role in Detroit and is going to make a massive impact. And again, first round, what was it, pick 18? I don't care. It was a good pick. They needed the linebacker help. I don't know if Campbell's there in the second round, being totally honest. You look at some of the teams later in the first round, like if he's sitting there for Buffalo, imagine saying, hey, we just lost Tremaine Edmunds. Let's go get white Tremaine Edmunds. That's just not as good in man coverage. Like, that would have been a sick fit. Or I was going to say the Giants, but that was kind of an early offseason thing before they signed Bobby Okereke. Like, there were other teams that he could have gone to and made an impact. So taking him at 18 makes a ton of sense if you don't think he's going to be there later on.
Also, you forgot to mention the biggest, most important part of Jack Campbell joining a Dan Campbell team. The obvious connection that is beyond just the last name. I mean, he fits the ideology perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
But you could continue.
Yeah, and I mean, perfectly put. He's this aggressive, high motor, not afraid to get down and dirty type of dude that is just Jack. I mean, he is Dan Campbell as a linebacker. Like, if you took Dan Campbell, the tight end, and put him at linebacker, he might not be as instinctive as Jack Campbell, but he's going to play the same way. He's going to go up and hit somebody. And there's, like, I don't want to sound like an old head, like the league's soft these days, but there really aren't a lot. Right. He plays the game like they did in the 80s. He's like, when I did my Substacks, when I was writing about all these different prospects, I was so proud of my comparisons because I didn't do the typical player to player. I did player to fictional character. And for Jack Campbell, I said Steve Rogers, Captain America, because truthfully, he, first of all, looks like he took the super soldier serum. And second of all, he is a man out of time. This guy would have been a top 5 pick in 1983. Like, if you, it's crazy to think like how, like, I don't know. I just love Jack Campbell so much. I can't put into words how excited I am to see this man play football. And I both love and hate that he's in Detroit because I have to play him, or my team has to play him twice a year. Sorry, I'm one of those fans that says we and I when I'm talking about the Bears. Deal with it. It sucks that we have to play him twice a year, but also like Detroit is such the perfect fit for him. Like the other 15 games that he plays, my eyes will be glued to the screen out of excitement just to see him kill somebody or pick a ball off or just do whatever. Because I love Jack Campbell so much. He brings me hope. He brings me joy. He is my glorious king, for lack of better words. But before I get too excited, because we need to settle down a little bit, let's look at the rest of this draft class. Obviously, Jahmyr Gibbs, we alluded to early on. A little bit rich for my taste, sure. A little bit higher than I would have taken him. But he has a clear role in Detroit. We were talking about earlier, DeAndre Swift had this role last year. And Jahmyr Gibbs is just DeAndre Swift on steroids.
And he's going to do more than just that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that you can straight up line up at receiver and feel good about. Like, there are not a lot of running backs in the NFL that you look at as nuanced route runners, and Jahmyr Gibbs is absolutely that. And not only is he a nuanced route runner, but like he's really good at creating separation as a route runner. He's super instinctive. His hands are really reliable. Like, this is a different type of receiving back. Like, he's almost more well equipped to play receiver than CMC would have been. Like prime CMC in Carolina. He's the inverse Deebo Samuel is the best way to look at it. Where Deebo is a wide receiver that lines up at running back a lot. Jahmyr Gibbs is a running back that's going to line up at receiver a lot. And it's not like, I know he's small. You don't have to just put him in the slot. You can spread him out wide, and he's still going to cook. He's going to get separation downfield because he is fast, and I don't know how fair against press. Maybe that's kind of to be determined. But the point is, there's a clear role for him.
And if you want to talk about a guy that's just a home run threat anytime he gets the ball, come on. I mean, let me just make it very clear to a lot of the people that complain about this pick as a reach, and I'm not going to disagree with you. Again, I don't love the pick, but I said it before, I'll say it again. In Ben Johnson, we trust.
There you go.
In Ben Johnson, we trust. Giving him yet another tool that can do the stuff that Jahmyr Gibbs can do, that could do just subhuman stuff. It's lights out. We're giving him more and more toys to play with. And that's exactly what I would say that Jahmyr is. He is a toy that you could just do all this crazy shit with. Because you can't. Someone with this skill set, I mean, it is insane. The way he could operate in space, the way, like you said, he could run routes, even though he's a running back. The fact that you can do some weird, like, two-back stuff with him and David Montgomery on the field at the same time can be really, really damn nice. I mean, it's just going to be great. It is. And I'm not just saying you could have both of them on the field at the same time as like, Jahmyr Gibbs is basically a slot. No, I'm talking about like two-back. Okay, I'm talking some weird shit. All right, and although that might not sound too weird, I mean, we're in the modern NFL where anything that isn't just normal 11 personnel is weird. Am I wrong in saying that?
No, but listen, I'm just saying everybody gangsted till Ben Johnson whips out the 31 personnel and puts those two in the backfield with
Craig Reynolds.
No, I was talking about the
fullback.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying, imagine you get like a weird formation where you got Goff, Kabinda, and then the two running backs in the backfield. Send both of them out on a route, keep Kabinda back as a pass blocker.
And they're still going to score a touchdown.
What do you mean still? That's going to be an unbeatable play. Unblockable, unguardable. You see three running backs in the backfield, your defense explodes. It's a literal cheat code banned from the league. There's your Oppenheimer right there. You put three backs in the backfield, there will be a nuke that goes off in Ford Field. But
And they couldn't do it without drafting Jameer.
yeah,
Couldn't be done.
right.
It
Now,
is the key to the nuclear bomb.
yeah, now just so I'm not a negative Nancy and piss everybody off, I'm going to let you talk about Laporta because I do not like Laporta.
Yeah, well, no, I get why there's stuff not to like about him. As a blocker,
Yeah.
much to be desired.
Yeah.
But I do think the fact that I say this every single time I bring the guy up, and I'm sorry. I sound like a broken record. But the fact that he's a tight end that you could line up in the backfield, or you could even line up not at slot receiver, right? Not at the Travis Kelce, Darren Waller. No. He's better. He could do more than that. All right. Line him up all the way outside. That's not something you see a lot. Okay. That just isn't. And obviously, he's not better than Kelce. I see you over there after I say that.
Saying you more than Kelce is crazy. I know you're not dumb enough to say he's better than Kelce.
Yeah, I'm exaggerating. I'm exaggerating a little bit. But my point is, I mean, he is a legitimate option over there as an X. You could do he can line up at any position.
Sure.
However, at the traditional tight end spot, you really don't want to.
Yeah, you're
he could run the routes. He could run the routes. But the blocking, I don't think he knows what that is. I don't think he knows football.
Blocking, the catch radius, the contested catching, the things that you want a tight end to do, he's not very good at.
Lack of hands don't worry me. I'm not gonna lie to you. That has never been something that legitimately.
It's not a lack of hands. It's not having the physicality to body somebody on a contested catch, or having the catch radius to haul something in. You know me.
He doesn't do tight end can't block.
Stuff. Right.
He doesn't do tight end stuff.
Right. He's not a tight end. He is respectfully a fat receiver. That's what we're looking at here. We're looking at a receiver that's just a little thick.
Sure. But his physical tools that he has, and I'm not just talking about physicality, in terms of his ability to get separation, because he is quite a good route runner, and he also has pretty damn good speed for a fat receiver. You're not really going to want to guard the guy with a linebacker, and because of that, the lack of physicality that he plays with isn't as much of a problem as it would be with most other tight ends. Now, again, it sounds weird to say a tight end that lacks physicality. What the hell are you talking about? That's because this guy isn't a tight end, okay? He's marked as a tight end. He isn't a tight end. He is a tool.
Here's my thing.
He's a tool.
Okay, here's my thing. I get that, and that's exciting in a tight end. But you know who is on the board that does all of that and the actual tight end stuff? Luke Musgrave.
Michael Mayer.
Oh. And, I'm talking about if you want the crazy athlete, right? If you want a crazy athlete that does all the actual tight end stuff, Luke Musgrave was right there.
Musgrave's injury prone.
He had what? I don't know. I'm not ready to say that yet. I like Musgrave a lot.
He suffers injuries. That's one. And I don't think he offers quite the versatility.
He's not as versatile, but he's a tight end.
But that's, again, my thing. If they were looking for a tight end, they wouldn't have taken Laporta. They were looking for a tool that's considered a tight end so they could fill that spot in the depth chart.
Yeah, and I mean, time will tell on how they use him, obviously. And if they're using him in that way, sure. He's still going to have work to do there. He's not a I would say more than a little. His hands really concern me.
I thought that you're saying he's going to get a little bit of work at the tight end spot.
Well, no, I mean, if they're going to use him as a weapon and less of a tight end, he's got work to do to improve.
Sure.
He's got to grow, right?
Sure.
Even if that's the plan, and I get that, his hands really concern me. And again, he's a big body dude that can't really use it. It's there, but it's for show. It's the window dressing. And I hate that. I already forget the exact wording of it, but everyone goes crazy when I say this. If tight end can't block, he can't get the rock, right? That's my thing. I stand by it. I really don't like Laporta. It was tight end 6 for me, I think, maybe 7. I I don't like it early in the second round over Mayer, who was easily the best
That I
tight end in
agree.
this class,
There
over
is no business
Musgrave,
taking
who's a
over.
real
That I
tight
agree.
end, and not, again, I get not agreeing with it, but me personally, like, I know you're going to call this crazy. I would have even taken Tucker Kraft over Laporta because Tucker Kraft is at least a tight end. And maybe I'm a
If
little bit
this
biased because to me, Tucker Kraft is just Cole Kmet light, and you know how I feel about Kmet, but I just don't like Laporta.
And I get it, right? I think you kind of have to just open your eyes. I sound like a hippie, but you have to like
Yeah.
open your eyes to like the new,
You got to
not
open your
necessarily
third
the new
eye,
way the
bro.
tight end position. Yeah, open your third eye and just
The
understand
revolution is
the
coming. The revolution will not be televised.
the positionless player revolution is coming.
Bro thinks
All
this
right.
is the NBA. Bro thinks this is the secondary.
All right, man. When
You've been watching too much Brandon Staley defense film. You think every position doesn't exist anymore. You gotta come back to the real world. Get out of Toontown and come back to the real world, where our tight ends
they
have to
have him lined
block
up,
and
if
have
they
to
have
do
him
things.
lined up as a regular tight end, there's no way this pick works out. But they aren't
Right.
going to do that. Once again, and in my boy, we trust. Once again, in Ben Johnson, we trust. I'm sorry that I've almost been using that for every single offensive change.
Hey, here's a valid criticism of the Detroit Lions offense. Don't care, Ben Johnson.
Yeah,
Like,
but I'm right. That's the thing.
we'll see. All right,
You
now here,
you
let's move on.
can do
We
so
could,
much with him. I mean,
yeah,
that's
and
what
we could sit here and debate Laporta for hours, right? So let's move on to another pick that I don't like. I don't know how you feel, and that's Hendon Hooker. I don't like Hooker at all. Like, I know people tried to like, I know there was rumors of him going in the first round. If he would have went in the first round, whatever GM took him needed to be fired before the next day, so he didn't fuck up the rest of the draft, right? He wasn't even better than Jaron Hall for me. I did not like Hooker. You've got a quarterback coming off a torn ACL, is a total statue in the pocket, can't throw on the run. His mechanics are a mess. He like here's what I'll say about Hooker, right? Here's what I'll say about Hooker. He's good at getting the ball out quick. And that's it. That is literally it.
you forgot to mention my biggest criticism of him. Or I guess not the biggest, because this isn't like an end of the world type thing.
Okay.
But before I start kind of trying to defend him, but not really. Kinda. Not too much. I don't have a really strong stance on Hooker, I'm gonna be honest. But one of the major gripes with him that you haven't mentioned is the fact that Tennessee's offense.
Oh, it was incredibly simple.
Well, it wasn't even just that. It wasn't just simple. It was shit that isn't gonna be installed into an NFL offense ever.
Yeah, no, it was like the most bare bones RPO offense possible.
They had a formation that was just 2x2 with one receiver like within 3 yards of the sideline, and then another receiver like within 2 yards of him. And then it was the same on the other side. This is like spread deluxe.
Yeah.
And it isn't happening in the NFL. It's just never going to happen. The stuff he was running doesn't translate at all.
It's something out of Cliff Kingsbury's wet dreams, which should tell you all you need to know.
Yeah.
It was bad. And this is why Jalen Hyatt won the Blitnikoff Award and was considered a real NFL prospect and not John Ross, but worse in every way, shape, and form.
Yeah. I mean, that offense was...
It was bad.
It definitely was a series of X's and O's put on a whiteboard or chalkboard.
Right. The only player the only group of players across the board that I could take seriously out of that offense was the offensive line, because they actually had to play football.
Well, the Bijan? Sorry, not Bijan. Sorry, fuck. Oh my God. I just had the ultimate brain fart. Jesus Christ. Who the fuck was the running back?
At Tennessee?
Yeah. He might have not came out into the draft, but it wasn't like...
If they didn't get drafted, I don't know.
Yeah. their running back, they were running legitimate offensive concepts in the rushing game. I believe they were. The running back is irrelevant. My point is, at least the rushing stuff was normal NFL ran stuff.
Right.
So that's good. I don't know where the fuck I got Bijan from.
Texas. Texas,
yeah,
Tennessee.
I know he's on
both
Texas,
orange, both
Tennessee.
T. I get it.
Yeah. Well, I knew he was on Texas. I don't know what the fuck I was thinking. Hold on. You continue with Hendon Hooker and how he is definitely an NFL prospect. I need to find this out.
I mean, I kind of said all I had to say. He's not good. Like, he's coming off a torn ACL, which kills any mobility he had. He's like Dak Prescott if you took away everything, but no, if you took away everything, because he doesn't have a good arm. He doesn't make the best decisions. He's flat-footed. Like I said, when he's on the run, his mechanics are a mess. His pocket presence is terrible. It's like he doesn't see pressure. He stands there, doesn't move, doesn't bounce around, doesn't look around. He stands there. And then if the pressure is coming from whichever way he's facing, he might make a move to step up. But otherwise, he's just getting hit. And like in Detroit, not that big of a problem. But still, like, you want a quarterback that can navigate the pocket. That's like the bare minimum for a quarterback.
The pocket presence is definitely a thing with him. I don't think his ability to throw the ball was a problem. I thought he threw
like
a good
I said,
ball.
He's mostly accurate and he can put zip on a throw, but like I didn't love his decision making. His arm's mediocre.
I'm not big on him either, but he can make the throws, right?
He's a backup.
With a little bit of upside. You have to keep in mind too, he was mobile. He is coming off an injury though.
And he's also 25.
Yeah, that is obviously a big part of it too. For me, whenever I watched that offense though, I was just completely encapsulated play after play after play by the offense they were running.
Mm-hmm.
Every single time. I mean, it was baffling. That is always what stuck out to me. I didn't love him. I didn't really hate him as much as you do. I did have Haener ahead of him, though. I did like Jake Haener more.
I never watched Haener. I don't think.
Oh, really?
I don't think I did.
You're telling me you didn't watch Rico Nose's top?
That's why I didn't watch him.
Yeah, but he was.
Yeah, especially once I saw people like giving sensible takes were like, he's not that bad. I was like, yeah, no, I'm avoiding this at all costs, so I don't have to admit that Rico Nose might actually have half of a brain.
Well, no, I mean, he still had him ahead of CJ Stroud, Bryce Young.
Right. Like I said, I had Jaren Hall ahead of him. So I really like Jaren Hall, though. He was my QB5.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people don't like that, but I don't care. I loved Jaren Hall.
My point overall, though, is although I don't have Hendon Hooker as the QB, will that be QB5 or I guess QB4, right? Yeah.
Stroud, Richardson, Young, Levis. Yeah. So it would be QB5.
Levis was who I was forgetting. So
I was gonna say if you have him over Levis,
I did.
Okay.
So I missed. So I guess he missed the top 5. But I did have him as a 6. So they took him over Haener, which I disagree with, but I'm not like punching the table like, oh man, how the fuck did they do that? Like, no, I mean, he's good. He can make the throws. Whether or not he's a career backup, yet to be seen. If he's able to recover in terms of the mobility aspect, I'm confident in him.
Yeah.
But we have to see. I don't think it's the end of the world if they missed on him, though.
Yeah. So, rounding out the draft class, I don't know if you have super strong thoughts on Broderick Martin, Colby Swordstall, or Antoine Green, or if you just want me to run through them real quick and we can move on.
Broderick Martin, I was going to bring him up. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. By all means.
I not even much of him as a prospect. For me, it's more of just how important it is for him this year. Like, he's going to have a very big role for them.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, we talked about it earlier. Isaiah Buggs, is he a rotational guy? I think he's a rotational tier guy, but for him to be a rotational guy, you have to have someone to rotate him with. And I think the plan is for him to rotate with Broderick Martin. I
Mhm.
think. I think that's why they drafted him as early as they did. I mean, a third-round pick, that's not nothing.
Right.
He was a capable player, not anything overly dominant, but
Well,
capable. I
he
mean,
had flashes of dominance, and that's kind of my big
yeah.
thing is if you look at his highlights, you're like, "Holy shit." This is not just a space eater, but a people mover, right? But you watch him on a
It was the
down-to-down
lack of
basis.
consistency, though.
Right. On a down-to-down
Yeah.
basis, it's like one play, you get that holy shit moment. The other play, you're like, "Dude, there is no reason why you should be getting moved off the ball with as big as you are."
Which
Like,
obvious, the first thing there that raises character concerns to me most of the time. And it kind of surprises me that Dan Campbell was willing to take that.
I didn't take it as a character thing. I
I
took it
always, that's just a me thing. I
fair.
always assume that that's a character
For
thing, but
me, he just struggles with leverage. Like when he fires,
mm,
he's right up. Right.
mhm.
He's not firing forward. He's not getting underneath your pads. He's going straight up. And he's so strong that like sometimes that works, but other
Yeah.
times you get up underneath his pads, you're going to move him because football, low man wins.
And in
That's
the
101.
NFL, that's not.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's fundamentals. Dan Campbell's going to hammer that into that boy's head until he's saying it in his sleep. Low man wins, low man wins, low
So
man
we hope.
wins. Right. And if they can unlock that in him, like he can be a really damn good nose tackle because the dude's
Mhm.
fucking huge. And you put him next to Aleem McNeil, who they're turning from someone who came out as kind of built like a nose tackle to now he's like a Ferrari. Like he is quick for a defensive tackle. That could be a sick duo if Martin can pan out as a nose and really delve into that space eating nature.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree, right? He has shown flashes, like you said. I wanted to comment more on just his overall role and
Yeah,
how I
go
think he's
for it.
going to be important for the Lions' success this year, even though he is just a third-round rookie.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, from there, Kobe Swordstall just solid depth on the O line. What the fifth, sixth round? Sure.
Mhm.
And then Antoine Green is someone that I like, but again, sixth round pick. I brought him up earlier, and we're talking about someone that can step in for Jamison Williams. He's big, tall, and fast, and he has really like amazing flashes. And he's a good route runner, has reliable hands. It's
Skill
just
set might as well take the flyer 6th round, right?
right, precisely. Yeah. And I mean, Antoine Green, if he develops well, could be a stud. Like he has all the tools, obviously. And he's not that far off as a route runner. Like the routes, he didn't run a lot of different routes in college, but the routes he ran, he was really fucking good at. So and that goes for a lot of like later round receivers outside of the top guys. A lot of these guys aren't running like super diverse route trees. They've got a couple things they're relying on. And I know he played with Drake May, who was one of the best college quarterbacks out there, but I still think he's pretty good. And like you said, as a flyer, late round, good backup for Jameson Williams at the very least.
Mhm.
Um, but from there, I mean, we kind of already covered the roster like over the course of this video. Usually, what I do is at the very end we just go position by position, but we already did that. Like
Yeah.
we have talked about everybody except for Jason Kabinda. God love him. He again another like definition of Dan Campbell guy. I don't know if you remember the clip of him from Hard Knocks where Dan Campbell's just talking like we're gonna go out there, we're gonna murder them, we're gonna bite their kneecaps off, we're gonna eat their faces and all that stuff. And Kabinda just has like the most determined, like yes, like this is what is in my mind 24/7 look I have ever seen. And he has like that screams fullback mentality to me because to me, a fullback mentally at least an old school fullback. It's a little different now, but like back in the day, I just need like screaming at all times. Their head just needs to be constant screaming because that is the type of like psycho mentality I want from a fullback. And that's what Kabinda seems to have. And he's one of these guys, converted linebacker, like or not the all-time leading tackler, but one of the all-time leading tacklers at Penn State in college. Great special teamer. I love Kabinda. I hope he gets more work this year. Monty looked great running with a fullback last year with Kari Blasingame. So I'd love to see Kabinda get some work, uh, on early downs and in obvious rushing situations. And then outside of that, like they traded for a kicker. Riley Patterson's there.
We haven't talked about the individuals on the O-line.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Clearly, this is something you want to talk about. Go for it.
I play offensive line at my
Right,
school, right?
right.
So like I'm big on this.
I'm a big dude. I get it. I get it.
Yeah. Penny Sewell and Taylor Decker, really, really nice tackle duo. People talk so much about, and I'm not really comparing the two, but I'm more comparing how people look at them. People talk so much about, like even non-O-line guys talk about how the 49ers use Trent Williams and how, oh my God, it's crazy watching a guy that big, that dominant out in the open field, knocking people down and pulling and all that stuff. Cool. But no one talks about the fact that Penny Sewell is used like the same way.
Yeah.
Like no one talks about it. And I mean, they even use him catching passes with the game on the line, which
that
is
a thing that happened.
Insane to think about. But even in terms of just a normal, like, O-line, do normal stuff, and we're not just going to have you motion across the formation. We're not just going to have you pull across the formation and do all that stuff. In terms of just the normal stuff, he's still incredible. I mean, this guy is murdering people.
He's an amazing anchor for the offensive line.
Exactly. Complete tone changer for the entire team. And he just overpowers dude. He has good technique. I was saying it when this guy was still in college, coming out of Oregon. This guy, he really has like, and I don't want to set the bar too high, but he has like Hall of Fame level potential. Like he has consistent all pro ability.
Certainly.
Like, and he's a stud, and he's not even that raw. He never was that raw, and now he sure as hell doesn't look that raw. He's an animal out there. And Taylor Decker's been there for years now. He's been really, really consistent. You just mentioned how Penny Sewell was a consistent anchor for the offensive line. Well, that's exactly what Taylor Decker has been for years now. And when you have two of those guys, I mean, you're just set, right? It should be obvious. And then they also have a little bit of depth. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, if you're going to talk about the rest of the tackles, go ahead. I was going to move on to the interior because I wanted to talk about somebody, but go for it.
Just really quickly, I wanted to mention in case one of those two go down, which would be a big deal. They do have Germany Fetty, which I
don't
think
hype up Germain Fetty.
Don't hype up
Germain Fetty. He's not good. He's soft.
Really?
Yes,
I knew he was
soft.
Has he always been?
I don't know if he always has been, but
yeah, I think that's why
he's coming out of Chicago.
Like
in the last 3 or 4 years, he played for the Bears, and he was incredibly soft.
So I thought at one point he was capable.
He was good in Seattle for a while.
Yeah, that might have been why.
But as of late, no.
Okay.
For example, this will get your blood boiling, right?
Yeah.
There was a play, I can't remember who. I think we were playing Minnesota. Justin Fields gets hit late. And Tevin Jenkins, God love him, hits the guy that hit Fields. Goes up and shoves him,
talked about
which
this
every offensive lineman should do. If somebody hits your quarterback late, you go after him, you eat the 10 yards, whatever. Well, Tev did it. God love him. And Germain Ifedi, as soon as he walks back to the huddle, grabs him by the face mask and starts chewing him out. Mind you, Germain Ifedi was a team captain at this point. Tevin Jenkins is a rookie. What kind of shit is that? That is the softest shit I have ever seen an offensive lineman do.
So then the question is, how the hell is he a Detroit Lion?
Right. I was just about to say that. Where does he fit in this? Unless he's just there in the background like, hey, like he's just there to be Dan Campbell's like anti-hype man, right? Like Dan gets too intense. He's like, hey, coach,
sideline
coach, let's take a deep breath, do our yoga poses. Just, okay? We don't want to get arrested today. And then when Germain Ifedi gets cut, Dan Campbell will get arrested for manslaughter on the sideline. But yeah, Germain Ifedi, not only that, he's just not that good. So like, sure, I don't know.
So
I think
I guess he fell off a lot since Detroit then.
Yeah, I think I would rather have Swordstall as my backup tackle than him.
Swordstall,
the rookie.
I
mean, he's solid. That's all it is. He's just a solid tackle.
Yeah, I was unaware of how poorly. I'm looking at Ifedi right now. So his first year with Chicago, he wasn't horrendous.
No, he wasn't. But that second year, things fell apart. And
second, and then he got injured last year.
Yeah.
Oh, last year was with the Falcons.
Yeah. And again, he only had a job because Ryan Pace was like, hey, you used to play for me. Come on. Because he did that with like half the old Bears. Nick Kwiatkowski got a job. Cordell Patterson got a job. Some of our depth guys like Tease Tabor, if you remember him. I think he was in Detroit actually at one point. Yeah, he had a job in Atlanta because Pace hired every former Bear he could find because he was just like, these are my guys and I'm going to die by them. And they weren't good.
Yeah. So if
but
anything, Ifedi's just a veteran, I guess.
he's a veteran with
Sure.
the wrong mindset. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I remember in Seattle he was capable. I was just surprised to see a former first round pick who was at the age of 30 on the O-line as a backup. I thought that would, I mean, he has name value, I guess. I
Yeah,
guess I
there
wasn't
you go.
tracking for the wrong thing. All right.
But yeah,
Guards.
moving on to
Yeah.
just interior offensive line as a general,
Okay.
or in general, Frank Ragnow might be the most underrated offensive lineman in football. Just because the injury, like, I know he's hurt a lot. I know he's got injury concerns. But people forget the field, he's just as good as Creed Humphrey or Jason Kelsey. Like, Frank Ragnow is absolutely incredible at the center position. And I know he was hurt a lot of last year, and I think that's another reason why people aren't talking about it. But he's awesome. And if he can string together a healthy season, the Lions have the best interior offensive line in football at this point. Well, maybe not the best. It's close.
Well, I
Because
mean,
Philadelphia just lost Sayamalu.
yeah.
And who do the Chiefs have opposite of Trey Smith?
It is Joe Thuney.
Ah, that's right. I forgot about Thuney. Okay, so they have the second best.
But do you account for the fact that they've Graham Glasgow on the bench?
I mean, yeah, but I still don't think that's enough to outweigh Thuney.
Is it?
And
Okay.
I think Thuney's. I don't know why I forgot his name. He's one of the 5 best guards in football.
Yeah.
And Trey Smith isn't far off. And then Creed Humphrey is one of the 3 best centers in football. So
Jonah Jackson is a dog, though. It's not
Jonah
undersell.
Jackson's awesome,
Yeah.
and Big V is also awesome.
Mm-hmm. Let's
They
not
fit
undersell
the
that.
vibe of the Lions perfectly.
Yeah.
These dudes want to eat you when you line up across from them. I just don't think they're as good as the other guys.
Yeah. Still, though, let's not discredit it. Overall, as an offensive
No.
line, especially just the interior, phenomenal.
Yeah.
Really damn good,
Probably
though.
the
Like
best
I said, punch
offensive
you
line
the
in
mouth.
football. Second best interior in football.
Well, yeah. Now that the Eagles, like you said, lost Sayamalu, although they are replacing him with Cam Jurgens, who could have a good year, but we'll see.
He could, but not. I'm not ready to say that just yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Although I do
at the
love
moment,
Cam
though,
Jurgens.
yeah. At the moment, though, the Lions have the best offensive line in the league. I agree. And
Absolutely.
That's a key reason that they're able to dominate other teams, even without the best receiver core. And with the receiver core, suffering a couple of suspensions here and there, they're still able to dominate. Okay. Yep. And I mean, even the fullback plays a huge role in that. They're able to run stuff like duo, the stuff that's less complex, less modern, because they just have a better offensive line than most teams. They're fine walking into Philly and they're fine walking into San Fran and saying, yeah, your D-line's good, our O-line's better. We're just going to run duo all game. We're just going to run power all game, and we're going to smoke you with it. And that's just amazing to watch.
Yeah. But moving on from that, because we have been talking for a while now. I did not mean for this to go almost 2 hours, and I want to keep it under 2 hours if possible. Just to sum things up, right? Number 1, who on this team are you most excited to watch? And number 2, what is your ceiling, floor, and record prediction for this team?
So, who am I most excited to watch? It has been the same person since they drafted him. We were just talking about him. Penny Sewell.
I figured.
I love watching him, man. Once again, Trent Williams is great and all. Cool. That's phenomenal. That's great. Let the young guy get some sign. He's amazing and he's doing the same stuff. And the attitude he plays with, wasn't his rookie year he was fine just talking smack to Aaron Donald? Was that his rookie year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was.
Who else would do that? And he's technically sound too. Like, it's one thing to be really strong and just bulldoze people. That's great. When you do that, and then you're also playing the game the right way, and then you're still shit talking someone, I mean, I love watching it. Love watching it. And I know it's not flashy, but I really don't give a fuck. And he doesn't give a fuck either. You?
Yeah, so again, player I already raved about, Jack Campbell. I don't need to say anything else. I said my piece. I'm so excited to watch him play. I love an old school linebacker, and I think he's going to be incredibly integral for the Lions defense, and I'm so excited to watch him play. I'd be saying this for whatever team he went to. I love Jack Campbell.
Yeah, I agree. He's a very, not the opposite of modern. He's a very, he's a throwback player.
Yeah,
and
he's got that blend of new and old school.
Yeah, and you being, the football fan that I know you are, you love to see that type of stuff. So that pick doesn't surprise me at all.
I mean, him and obviously Jason Kabinda, but if I was saying my actual pick for every team, I'd just list off.
You would pick a fullback for every single team.
So I gotta restrict myself. But yeah, I love Campbell. But in terms of record prediction, right? Ceiling, floor, actual pick. What are we thinking?
So I wanted to do the ceiling and floor thing at first. Like that was my initial thing, and I was gonna do it, but whenever I try and do one of those things, it's always a me thing. I get way too exaggerative every single time. I got to a point where I saw Detroit when I was just doing floor. I saw Detroit with 4 wins, 5 wins on the season. I was like, yeah, I'm exaggerating that too much. Yeah. I don't want to put that out. Yeah, exactly. And that happens whenever I try and do ceiling and floor. So I'm just going to try and give you my, overall prediction. I got them at 10-7.
Okay. That's respectable.
I have them, just really quick, I have them losing the first 2 games. So losing to the Chiefs in Kansas City. I just think Kansas City basically has a bye week going into this entire thing. Andy Reid off a bye. That's how you look at this. I'm not saying that Detroit is a bye week, really quick, in case I haven't clarified that. I just mean they're looking at this like they're having a bye week going into it because it's the first game of the season. Giving Andy Reid time to prepare for a game always goes wrong for the other team.
Yeah. Andy Reid.
And I know preseason. And exactly. He's like Batman.
Yeah.
He's like Batman. And then I have Seattle beating them. I think that could be a tough game for both sides. That's really a swing game. But I do think all the changes on Detroit on the defensive side of the ball, meanwhile Seattle doesn't have as many changes, I'm just going to go with them here. Although that's really a swing game, right? The Falcons, I think, can be a tough game, but I do have Detroit riding the ship here. They win that, and they really make a statement there because of how bad the run defense was last year. They kind of prove how much better it could be now. And, of course, the Falcons love to run the ball. Then at Green Bay, I have Detroit winning. Against Carolina in Detroit, I have them winning again. They play the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers coming off a bye in Tampa. I have Detroit winning that game too. Then the Ravens game. Yeah, absolutely. The Ravens game, I had them losing, and then I also had them getting upset by the Raiders just because I don't really see anyone stopping Devontae.
Fair.
And maybe they just win that shootout, but it's not going to be a good looking
running cover 0 against Tay is scary.
Yeah, exactly. Although, hey, maybe Cameron Sutton continues to, be that guy, but I don't think I can't expect another that caliber of a season again.
Let's be serious.
Yeah. Then bye week, coming off the bye, they have the Chargers in LA. I have them beating them. Chicago and Detroit. I have Detroit winning both games against Chicago. I went over I could see. This is actually.
Oh, I forgot. Justin Fields hater. Just finish up your predictions. I'm already sick of talking to you.
Even with that, I can see Justin Fields going ballistic to a point where they win one of the two. I could see it.
Just keep rolling, buddy. You're on thin ice.
Green Bay and Detroit. I have Detroit winning again. Detroit in New Orleans. I have Detroit winning again. Then Detroit against the Bears. Bears coming off a bye. Like I said, I have the Bears sweeping them. I think one of the two games are going to be really close.
The Bears sweeping them. Good to know.
Then I finally figure, Detroit's luck is kind of running out at this point. They're coming off a 5-game win streak off their bye. It's about time they finally lose one. I think Denver is actually a threatening team. Can be a threatening team. I'm expecting them to be. Now, they could also suck again. And in that case, Detroit's going to beat them. But in case they don't find themselves sucking again, and I think that's what's going to happen, I think the Broncos beat them. Kind of an upset. And just like the Devontae Adams thing, I don't know who's going to stop Justin Jefferson. So I have Detroit losing to Minnesota. And then in Dallas, Detroit beats them and then loses to Minnesota again to finish the season.
So what's that overall as a record? You said 10-7. You already told me that. Yeah. Okay, so I'm not going to go game by game for the sake of time. I think floor, probably looking at about 7 wins. Ceiling, probably looking at about 12 or 13. Like, this Lions team can be really good. Realistically, though, I do think 10-7 is a pretty solid prediction. Although I'm going to go 11-6 because I think they're going to win more than one more game than they lost last year. Although it really could go either way. I think the Lions are a team that no matter what, every game they play in is going to be a dogfight. And obviously, you can't win them all in that situation. If you're in a dogfight every single week, eventually you're going to get beat a couple times. So I think they'll finish around 11-6 would probably be my prediction at the moment. Obviously, subject to change by the time we get through the offseason and all that, but for now, 11-6. Mm-hmm. But that being said, that's the Detroit Lions. Definitely a lot of things to be excited about with this team. Definitely a lot of things to look forward to. So before we get out of here, first of all, Patrick, thank you for joining me, for sitting here for almost 2 hours.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, and if you want to plug anything, by all means, go ahead. Whatever you say will be in the description, so you can go check that out after this.
At nohuddlenfl on TikTok and Instagram. That is nohuddlenfl, no capitals and no spaces. Also available on Twitter at nohuddlenfl with an underscore at the end. And let me just say, I'm getting so damn good at plugging my shit.
I was going to say, you got a whole team down. I've heard you say those exact words in that order like 10 times now.
I know. I also, Goal Line Podcast. Yep. That I don't have to plug on my podcast, so I'm not used to plugging that.
Yeah.
The Goal Line Podcast, the space goal space line space podcast on Spotify or wherever else you listen to your podcast. You'll probably see it there. And if you don't see it there, it's because wherever you listen to your podcast is a pretty sketchy website. Not going to lie.
Yeah, if you're... Never mind, I'm not going to make that joke. But yeah, all of that will be in the description down below. And then, of course, make sure to follow me on all platforms. Just Miller Football _ links will be in the description. And definitely check out my podcast, Run the North, which ironically, as Patrick mentioned earlier in the video, it's Run the North, an NFC North podcast, and we don't have a Lions fan. There's a Bears fan, a Packers fan, and a Vikings fan. Sorry, Lions fans, you're not represented because, again, y'all don't exist apparently when it comes to coming on camera. But that being said,
just for Detroit to win the division.
Right, exactly. But all that being said, I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to let us know down in the comments below what you think about the Lions this season. And just for funsies, let us know your favorite Lion of all time. That's fun. Mine, I don't know. I got to go with Corey Schlesinger, obviously. I think that's
Stafford.
And yeah, there you go. 2 solid.
Stafford's one of my Stafford's like in my top 2 favorite quarterbacks ever. Probably top 1. It's really close.
Yeah. Definitely make sure to, like and subscribe and all that good stuff. We've got more of these videos coming out, going to be covering all 32 NFL teams with some guests. Got some big, exciting guests in the DMs currently trying to work some things out. So with that being said, to everyone out there watching, and of course, Patrick here with me as well, I hope you all have a wonderful day, evening, night, afternoon, whatever time of day it is for you. I hope you enjoy it because you're all wonderful people and you deserve it.